Hello, if you're seeing this, congratulations. Borderlands 4 is out today. I'm Jeff Gerstmann. I've played, let's call it somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 hours of Borderlands 4. I finished the campaign and have messed with it a chunk after that. There's some kind of post-game stuff that they walk you through. And I'll show you some of that later. You know, it's like obviously the story's kind of out of the way, but you know, we can still get back in the world and talk a little bit about some of the systems and things at play there. Borderlands 4 is okay. It's all right. As someone who really didn't like Borderlands 3, but has always had an almost inexplicable soft spot for Borderlands. With the exception of the pre-sequel. I mean, let's not be ridiculous. That's a bad game. This game, it feels like it's trying to turn back the clock in some ways and undo the damage of Borderlands 3 and the bad writing and a lot of the directions that game goes in. But at the same time, it also feels like they want to prove a point. Like, it's like they're going out of their way to include some of the worst stuff from the pre-sequel and try to make good on it, and they don't. And it's just a very strange. It's a very strange game in that way. But like the writing is sort of the thing that I think everyone is latched onto. So let's talk about that. It is grounded in a way that Borderlands 3 certainly was not, but I would also argue that Borderlands 2 had similar problems. You know, with Handsome Jack and just the idea of this kind of like lighthearted flip villain that is just like every character in the game is mouthing off nonstop. You know what I mean? It gets to be overkill. Whether you like the jokes or not is like I guess that's a matter of taste. I guess I don't know, but I think even if you like that style of material, it never lets anything breathe. Borderlands 3 specifically, but you know, but 2 was definitely headed in this direction, and they're just hammering you over the head with like the dumbest garbage imaginable nonstop. And so, you know, that's why people talk about it like, oh, it's a podcast game, or I turned it down. Some people deleted the dialogue files from the PC install so that it couldn't talk, or they turned the VO down. Like people went to extreme lengths to still play Borderlands 3 without having to hear it. And I salute them. But ultimately, I think, you know, my issues with Borderlands 3 were more than that. It was the pacing and the mission design, and there was just a lot of stuff along the way that I just think didn't work. Borderlands 4 feels like, in some ways, a follow-up to Borderlands 2, but also tonally, I would say it is maybe closer to somewhere between Borderlands 1 and 2. The villains in this game are not cracking wise nonstop. They are bad guys. They are, you know, attempting to dominate. They are, you know, they're bad guys. They act as such. But that's not to say that it is like a very serious game. It's weird. So, you know, last week they let people post, and I posted a video of like the first kind of big boss fight in the game against Idolator Saul, whatever. And it's this section of the game, and as I was playing it, because I was playing it for the first time for recording the video. Actually, I had to record the video twice, but the first time through, it was my first time through the content. And as I'm playing it, I realized like, oh, this is probably the most serious section of gameplay I've seen in the first, you know, it's about 4 hours in, but like in my time with the game, this is the most like flat, here's a bad guy, you're going to go kill him. No one is joking around too much. And other than the quips from your character, and it felt like that they deliberately kind of cherry picked that part of the game, both because it was early in the game, but also I think because like writing wise, I think if you had concerns about the tone of this game because of Borderlands 3, you could not find a part of that game that was more the opposite of that than the chunk that they chose. That's not to say that they were being deceptive, because I think generally speaking, the tone of the game is subdued. But it is the same type of humor. You know, you've still got the psychos running at you and shouting non sequiturs and stuff, and you know, like you run into Claptrap in the beginning, and it's just like, you know, it's the type of game where the punchline is someone yelling the word murder in the middle of a sentence where it doesn't quite belong, and treating murder as a flip thing, and I, you know, like the same way the internet went crazy for bacon conceptually, and was just everything was like epic bacon, this and that. Like that's how Borderlands has treated the word murder over the years in a lot of ways. And it still does that, you know, like these guys are running at you and they're shouting, "Can I borrow a cup of sugar?" Or you know, or whatever, right? They're like, it's still that game. But I think it's much more grounded in a way that, like, it's not exhausting. Like that game, Borderlands 3 is so exhausting out of the gate because of the way it's written. And I would call this an improvement. But I wouldn't take it to say like that the tone of the humor has necessarily changed. It's just that they have turned the knob to an appropriate level to where it actually lets some of the bits breathe. There's a couple of moments throughout the game that I actually thought were pretty well done. You know, just writing wise, just like from a like, oh, that's a funny joke. There's a funny joke here, and most often that stuff's in the side quests anyway. Like the main thrust of the story is there's this bad guy, the Timekeeper, and he controls pretty much everyone on the planet. He's got a thing installed in the back of everyone's spine, and if you rip it out, you go crazy, and then you become a psycho ripper or whatever. But also, you know, he can kind of see through everyone's eyes and take control of everyone. You gain some resistance to that ability early on in the game, and you're kind of on your way to unite a resistance against this guy and ultimately, you know, take him down on an entirely new planet, which is nice. It kind of helps reset things a little bit. Not that the setting is that different. I mean, it's a wasteland. It's got, you know, it's got the same types of settings that you would expect from a Borderlands game, and it does have characters and things that tie in from the past as well. But it helps give the game at least a little bit of a clean slate, a little cleaner slate, I guess, to where it doesn't feel directly tied to the events of Borderlands 3, even though it is in fact, you know, like that's not they're not hiding that's, you know, like this game is set very much after the events of the Borderlands games. It's not a reboot, it's not a reset, it is Borderlands 4, you know what I mean? In some ways I found the game to feel old. I don't know, like, how do you feel about just like taking a submachine gun and aiming it at a guy's head and then holding the trigger down until 2 full magazines are empty? Is that exciting for you? I found that to just be like some of these enemies are bullet spongy in really weird ways, and then occasionally you'll find a weapon that kind of breaks that concept, and you're like, oh, I'm mowing these guys down. And it's not quite just like, oh, you get behind the damage curve, ahead of the damage curve. Like, it's like some of it is like weapon type and how well you can use a weapon type in a situation, and things like that. But yeah, a lot of that game is you shooting dudes in the head again and again and again, to the point where they actually have, you know, like one of the hit reactions, one of the very common hit reactions when you're rocking a guy's face off with bullets is he falls down. And then so enemies will fall to the ground, they will get back up, and so it completely prevents you from just shooting a guy in the face over and over again until he's done, until the life meter has drained. And it's a devious little trick, you know, and it works. I think it works in the context of what they're trying to do. But I did find that the enemies, by and large, felt very spongy. Even in the end game, as you're getting like kind of higher leveled loot, or as you're finding higher tier loot, it was rare that a fully automatic weapon felt like it was doing the damage it should. And so the balance ends up being in favor of some of the single shot weapons. Like you will find like a single shot assault rifles, and you know, if you can aim those properly and get your headshots in and stuff, like, you know, you start doing very effective damage. But even then, we're talking maybe 4 or 5 shots in a row. It's not a one shot one, even with the sniper rifles I found along the way. And you could argue that I just had bad luck with the RNG and whatever, but I think some of it is by design. They've really continued to build out this weapon manufacturer concept that they've been using over the years, where the Jacobs guns do a very specific type of profile of gun in this Old West kind of, this is a revolver and it only has 4 shots or 6 shots or whatever, but it does a little bit more damage than, the average bullet out of one of the Tediore guns or whatever, the Vladoff, I don't know. And so they build those profiles, the gun that when you empty it and hit the reload button, instead of going to reload it, you throw it like a grenade and it blows up and another gun magically spawns in your hands. Like that stuff is still present here. And so that kind of, I think it cuts both ways, because I think one of the exciting things about Borderlands conceptually has been like, you never know what's around the corner, what weird gun you're going to find. The manufacturer stuff establishes very defined rules. The new faction in the game, the Order, their guns, they fire like negative edge in a fighting game. Like when you let off the button, it shoots, because it's you hold down to start charging up a shot, and then it lets off when you let go. So you can charge up like 5 shots in a row and let go. I think that's a terrible, for the type of game that this is and the number of enemies you're sometimes fighting. I found that to be the most miserable experience imaginable. So, that's probably a personal preference thing, but it did lead to me, looking at the gun and going, okay, this gun does higher DPS than what I currently have, but I will be significantly less effective with it because it has to charge up in this very specific way. And so I would err on the side of not using those guns most of the time, unless I found a number that was too high for me to pass up. And that's kind of the trade-off. It's nice in a way, because it does force you to kind of always be changing up what guns you're using. Any loot game, especially along the leveling curve, when you're not doing end game type of stuff, you're going to find yourself in that scenario, right? You're constantly changing out guns and finding stuff. I will also say that I think Borderlands 4 has incredibly effective shotguns that tighten. It feels like the spread tightens a lot when you aim down sights. And so it does great damage at a range that feels unrealistic for a shotgun compared to most other video game shotguns. And that feels nice sometimes when you find the right mix of like a nice Jacobs shotgun, for example. That stuff can be very effective. Now, the other thing about the loot is that sometimes you'll find guns that kind of break some of those rules, some of those manufacturer rules, where like, this is a Jacobs gun, or this is an Order gun, but it has a Ripper magazine on it. And the Ripper guns fire full auto, but they have a charging phase where you have to hold the button down for like a second or whatever, and then they'll start firing. And that's not great either in a game where you want to be doing a lot of shooting, but I'll take it over the way the Order guns normally fire. So you'll find things that kind of play around with those rules in ways that ultimately, much like any other Borderlands game, eventually I'm just thinking like, man, it would be really cool if I could change out some of these gun parts myself and actually modify some of the weapons to my liking. And, this is a really cool gun, but it doesn't, the firing mechanism is not to my liking. It'd be cool if I could adjust that and do that. Like I don't believe that's in there anywhere from the post-game stuff. There's a post-game thing that unlocks where they're like, you can change out the firmware. They've talked about this in previews, but like you can change out the firmware on your gun. And I'm like, I can modify the guns? Does that mean I can level them up to make them stay with me longer if there's a gun that I like? It didn't explain what that meant. And then you go, and no, it is firmware is what they, the words they use for like set bonuses. You'll find items like shields and healing kits or what, different non-gun items usually that will have a set bonus on them. And you can equip up to 3 of the same type. So if you find an item that has it is part of a set, but you don't want to use that item, you can take that set designation, the firmware, and transfer it to another weapon or another item rather, so that you can put it on something you like and then equip the stuff that is useful to you. I was a little disappointed when I found that was not a gun modifier type of thing, but hey, in a world where they want to give out shift keys and golden keys and all that same stuff that's still in here, If you could just go make your own ultimate gun the way you like it, I guess that would break a lot of their other stuff. I don't know. It's weird in some ways that that's not there, but I guess on some level, the crux of that game is the RNG of look at this crazy gun I got. The upshot of all that is there was never a gun in this game where I said, look at this crazy gun I got. Even the highest tier weapons, which the finishing the game opens up a vendor that is like Xur from Destiny. It moves around on a weekly basis, apparently. But, that's pre-release. That's kind of hard to test, but it sounds like the vending machine will be in a different place, I guess. The like bonus like features of these guns that I was getting was not to my liking. So I don't know, like that stuff. Maybe next week, maybe the next week there'll be better guns for sale. But yeah, I don't know. That stuff didn't really work out for me. Why don't we get into it? Like, really, I think the other big part of it is kind of the motion, the movement, and the way the game plays, because they've made a few changes to that aspect of the game. If you want to read a full review, that's on the Patreon. That's free to read. Go and read it. It's on patreon.com/Jeff Gerstmann. I wrote that a couple of days ago. It's got more detail on kind of all of this stuff, as we kind of move into just like, hey, here's the game. Anyway, let's load up the game. So there's one more thing I'll say here. The streaming PC has gone to sleep. Let's wake it up. This game is patched a couple of times pre-release. They've been talking about their day one patch and some of the things that they are working on. One of the big ones that is mentioned in there, like, hey, here's something that we are working to address, is the idea of shader compilation and hitching related to shaders. This game has, there we are. We don't have a shader cache on this machine. This is a 4090 with a 5950X as the CPU, in case you're wondering about some of the stats here, which I have found to run the game mostly well. I've mostly been playing it on a 5090 with a 14.7, one of the Intel processors that is dangerous or whatever. But this is a 5950X and a 4090 that we're going to be running it on here, and with no shader cache. I'm going to emphasize that. So this game has been the type of game that can be very hitchy when you are entering an area for the first time, and then once it compiles all the shaders, it's fine. That said, every time they've patched the game, it dumps that shader cache. And then every time you fast travel in the game to an area that you haven't seen, how shaders work at this point. Like, if you're going to upgrade your GPU's drivers, that's going to dump your shader cache more often than not. Patches are going to invalidate a shader cache in most cases as well. That's just how most games seem to do it. At least that's how this one seems to do it for sure. So let's see how it goes. This is, we're playing this here about 12 hours before the game will be out. So I'll give that caveat that there's still time for them to issue more patches. This may not be quite the final version of the game, but in the interest of just full transparency, I want to let you know that that's the case. This might be, I'll put it to you this way, like even on a 5090, the shader stuff has been extremely noticeable. When I load into areas, I just would sit in a circle and spin for a while until it was smooth, just to make sure that I was compiling as many shaders as I possibly could. It will, the load times into an area, the portal little thing that Borderlands does, that might take longer than normal because it'll be compiling shaders in those moments as well. And when we launch this game here, in fact, I should just launch this game here because I bet it's going to have a lengthy shader stage here as well. This may not end up being your full experience with the game. I can't really say one way or the other right now. But again, we're so close to release. There have been some patches that have been pushed out since reviewers have had their hands on the game. And here we go. You know, the game's got a grapple. We'll get into some of the movement and motion and stuff, but you know, the game's got kind of a grappling hook thing, but it's not free grapple. It only grapples to grapple points and specific things that you want to pick up in the environment. So you can like throw gas cans and whatever else. So are we gonna? Is this gonna compile? This is where it would normally stop and give us like a straight up, yo, we're compiling graphic on screen. Did they patch out the thing that says compiling shaders? Okay, well, okay, maybe I'm wrong and maybe it'll be the next screen, but let's see what the boot. Okay, it will be here. Yeah, there it is. There's got to be a better way with this stuff, I think. And consoles, I presumably won't have to deal with this because they know that you have an Xbox. There's not that many different configurations of an Xbox or a PlayStation or a Switch 2, right? So as long as you've got storage space for them, they can just feed you all the shaders as part of the download, and you'll never have to deal with this. That's, you know, Call of Duty basically does the same thing, but Call of Duty is pretty notorious for some of the, you know, notorious for being transparent about it, I guess. They you know, they'll put the big number in the corner as you're sitting at the menu, and it'll say compiling shaders. Like if you join a match, it's going to stutter. Like it's an interesting byproduct of just where we're at technology wise. I've been talking a little bit about developers and the Unreal Engine, and you know, Tim Sweeney was in Korea talking about how developers need to be targeting lower end hardware, and you know, like kind of pushing back on some of the talk that UE5 is getting in the way in some cases for developers, for players even. I don't know that I have the definitive answer to like, here's who was to blame, you know, like I'm not going to sit here and do that. I think that it's just kind of, this is the way that this stuff is made currently. I think this situation needs to improve. Steam has some built-in stuff for transmitting shaders as part of the download that they built around the Steam Deck that I would love to see them implement. I think it only work for like Vulkan shaders. It may only work on Steam Decks and other Linux machines. I don't know that I've ever seen shader pre-cache stuff here on Windows, but that's neither here nor there. We're just talking. We're hanging out. I'm trying to think if there's anything else to talk about before we kind of get in, but here we are. I have to turn this way to look at the TV. And so you see here it says 33 hours played. I think my Steam time is longer than that, but Steam doesn't know that I paused the game for a good long time, and the game seems to. We're level 37. This is going to be post-campaign. So I'll warn you ahead of time here. This is after the end of the game. And so my hope is that we will not be spoiled on any story stuff if you care about that sort of thing. But I can't guarantee that someone's not going to come on a radio and be like, oh, since you did this blank, 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 blank thing, everything's been great. I don't think that's the case. That has not really been something that's happened a lot. So hopefully that'll be the case. We may see some more shaders compile right here. I'm kind of curious. I'm more curious than you are about this stuff, but yeah, this is a little longer than it normally is. And we get the, yeah, okay. So if we were to go in-game and immediately start fast-traveling around, it would be really long load times like this because we would be fast-traveling to different areas with different tile sets and needing to compile different shaders. In fact, as we load in here, is this going to stutter a little bit? No. Okay, so this loaded in smooth. Good. Good. The quest I'm on here is actually an accessibility problem. While we're just talking, this is a side quest where you have to like use like loot colors and figure stuff, and it uses like the quest steps just say color names, and the color names don't change even when you're using different loot colors on the accessibility settings. Like it still refers to greens and blues, and hopefully they'll fix that. Here's my guy. It's Rafa. He was the one that spoke to me out of the gate when I had to make the choice of who am I going to play as. His skill trees looked the most interesting to me. And so I've been this dude. You can customize your guy. You get different heads, different color sets. This stuff, you get them out of missions all the time. Different color schemes for Jack, or what is it, Echo 4. Jack, rip that door. Like he is. When you need to go to a mission and hack a terminal, this robot will appear and like a Destiny ghost or whatever, and do your thing. So you can kind of customize different aspects of your guy. You know, some of the... I guess I haven't really looked at this. Okay. Yeah, let's do that. Let's change him up. I'm further away from this TV than I am from the monitor, so I bet I'm going to miss a bunch of headshots. Anyway, so yeah, the skill trees, you have kind of 3 basic takes on your action skill here. I went with shoulder turrets, what shoot guns... And then when you get to the bottom of the tree, you can pick another kind of capstone-y kind of thing down here. And this replaces the straightforward guns with shotguns. And that's been okay. That's been effective. I've been going for kind of survivability. Like, some of this stuff is interesting. Like, when moving, shots have a chance to ricochet off. And so if you're sliding, then that chance is doubled. So if you're playing kind of a slidery kind of style here, then you can do that. I would, you know, I said it in the review, and I do mean it. This game is not a movement shooter. It has a lot of the trappings of the kind of basic concepts that you would want a movement shooter to have, but it doesn't really put them together quite as well as you would want. My grenades are knives, and they are knives that create black holes, singularities, that then suck enemies in, and that's been cool. It's been cool because you encounter flying enemies in this game, and normal grenades are not super effective against a flying enemy. Specializations, again, since we're post-game, specializations are this game's equivalent of like the Diablo kind of Paragon levels or the badass ranks found in previous Borderlands games. We can double jump. We can do a dash here. You get kind of 2 dash charges on 1 meter. You see that meter refilling at the bottom of the screen, or the bottom middle, I guess. And you can, on the ground, you can do side dash and back dash. You cannot do forward dash on the ground, but you can do this, the quick jump to forward dash. You also have double jump and glide, and that will burn that meter. And so that's useful for getting from place to place when you're up high and you need to kind of get around a little bit. Like so. You can mantle. You can ground pound. And you can grapple. The grapple target shows up as a circle around grappleable items like this. And we can throw that like so. Grapple points are not swing targets. They are more like yanks. Like you kind of yank yourself. Yank yourself up to a higher level. I'm trying to see if there's any around here. The early parts of the game feel like they put the grapple targets exactly where you would want them. And then later parts of the game, they feel much harder to come by. You see that meter below the gun? This is one of the guns that needs to charge before it starts firing. So you see I can kind of... I think that's a pretty cool reload animation. The game's got some secret reload animations. Like if you reload a gun enough times, you might see a kind of a rare reload, which I appreciate. These fuckers are coming to get me. I don't like that. And so you can kind of feather the trigger so that you're always ready to fire if you want. Within reason. I mean, let's not be crazy. I think one of my problems with this game is the loot and this part of the game of, like, especially class mods. Honestly, class mods are a great example of this. What the hell am I looking at? Those are icons that correspond to, much like class mods have always been, they are icons that correspond to these skills. But am I going to look at that and know, like, okay, that's like a drone thing, and that's like a what does that do? What does that do again? And what do I have equipped? The +3 in gun plus this, and then up arrow around a guy flexing. Is that a melee thing? I don't know. Like, I don't know what I'm looking at. I'm gonna loot that as junk because I don't care enough. The DPS is only compared to your current weapon, and so, you know, I would try to keep different weapon types in all 4 of my weapon slots. And so I'd have to look at it and go, okay, that's an SMG, so I need to compare it to the gun, the slot that I use for SMGs, and see if that's better. And so you have to switch guns and sit there and stare at it and compare, and, you know, you can kind of just look at the big number, which is mostly what I did. But even that, you know, when a high-end enemy is spitting out 8 guns at you, and you have to sit there and stare at it and go, okay, 1,000 DPS, that's a terrible number, for, you know, and I don't currently have a sniper rifle equipped. This shield sucks. Like, the walk around and clean up after the fact stuff, I think is super bad. Now, you can just pick everything up and look at it later, but I actually don't think that the in-menu experience is any better either by default. Like, you know, here's weapons, and so you're still kind of comparing them to a slot. And so we have to kind of pick the different slots to get different, we have to hit compare, and then pick different slots to get different comparisons, and move back over and back over and over again. I like that stuff, again, for a game where you're just getting loot non-frickin' stop. I wonder how many of my 30 hours was spent just, like, staring at the ground. Here's a grapple point. So here's how that works. It just yanks you up. You'll find combat areas that'll have grapple points kind of just, you know, on a light pole or something like that. Like, it's not meant to yank you up somewhere, but it just kind of gets you up into the air in case you want to get from place to place, and that's okay. I wish you could just grapple anything. Like, it would be cool if I could just... It'd be cool if I could grapple enemies. Like, what if I could grapple, like, lesser enemies and yank them over to me and shoot them in the face with a shotgun? That would be a cool thing to do. But it was not really meant to be. The only case where you can kind of yank enemies is you'll find enemies that have, like, a gas can on their back, or, you know, some kind of tank, and you can blow up their tank by tugging it and kind of immediately kill them. Oh, this we still have this. Whoa, frame rate all of a sudden. Let's just sell all this junk. So I'm going to show the map here again, just kind of in case you're spoiler laden or whatever. This is the overall size of it, and you get a good idea of places I went and did not go over the course of the campaign, I guess, if you're so inclined. Find the Augur's highly trained scout and figure out why they're leaving Defiant Calder on red. Oh boy. Maybe I need to take back everything I said about this game's sense of humor and writing style. Also, like, it is not above referential humor. Like, Rafa, like, a lot of his lines of dialogue repeat too often. Like, his combat barks, or, you know, whatever you want to call them. Like, that stuff repeats way too frequently. And he did rattle off a, who do you think you are? I am. So it's not like they did not completely abolish the concept of referential humor, dialogue, whatever you want to call it. Okay, we need to fast travel to somewhere over here. This is probably the closest fast travel point. Yeah, this has to be the closest fast travel point. And since we're fast traveling, I'm guessing that we will get a long, like, we will get a long teleport here with a shader compilation percentage showing again. And then we'll be, yeah, as expected. So the thing I'll say is, you know, I played most of this game without it patching. And like a lot of games with shader compilation, your first time through it is doing that sort of stuff. And you're getting to a new area, especially like if you're driving your vehicle into a new area, it is hitching as you're going because it is compiling those shaders on the fly. And that is probably the most noticeable. Like sometimes you'll be like in combat and then it'll just halt for a second and you'll be like, that sucks. That stuff's not good. But as you play more of the game, it sort of goes away because it has compiled all of the shaders already. If we tap up on the D-pad here, it will draw a line. Sometimes this line is bad and tries to tell you to walk through a wall or just stops, which is not ideal. You can also, you can do Mario Kart drifts on your vehicle here. So let's try and, I need to find a good area to do it. But if I hop and hold the button, if I need to keep going. But if I hop and drift and keep going, oh man, like why am I not able to do it now? You'll see it kind of pop there, and then when I let off, I get another speed boost. That's probably shader stuff. I'm getting, you know, if you're, I am seeing some frame rate drop here on this end that I bet you are also seeing. And I bet that's because we went that other way and found those enemies, and that probably caused some more shaders to compile. I'll say that in my time with the game, you know, without it doing any of the shader stuff or anything else, I found the frame rate and performance to be just fine. However, you know, it has to compile a lot of shaders. And so it is that thing of like, the more you play of it and the less they have to patch it, the smoother experience you're going to have, which is not ideal, obviously. But I will say that here on this 4090 and also on the 5090 that I played it on, it was not a dramatic issue. It did not feel like, oh my god, this game is broken, for whatever that's worth. Naturally, as with all things PC and GPU related these days, you may have a vastly different experience than I did, depending on how frequently they patch it. Or maybe the patches help correct the error. Like these times for compilation do seem less than they were a couple of days ago when they patched it last time. And so at least I've had the benefit of like a couple of patches in a row to kind of do some of that testing. But it is something that they seem to be very aware of. It was something that when they sent out the review builds, they were like, hey, we've got a day one patch, we're working on this stuff, and that was on their list. I can't sit here and tell you that it's not going to have any of that because it's a modern PC game. So of course it's going to have some of that. Like, Fight for Your Life is here, as you would expect it to be. This is a hot fight here at the elevator. I'll use my healing item here, which is left on the D-pad, which is kind of a clumsy input, I find. Makes me wish I had the back bumpers installed on this controller so that I could map it that way. Let's pull out our guns and have them help. They'll stay out while I'm in this down but not out phase. You cannot call them out while you're down. These turrets, the enemies will spawn those turrets behind you, and it sucks. You're like, why am I getting dropped? And it's because they plopped down a railgun behind you. That's not cool. Walking gun. This walking gun is not a threat to us because of some stuff I did earlier. Okay. thing I realized halfway through spending the game picking up guns is that most of these guns are useless, and the only thing you get for selling them is money. And money is also useless. This is maybe not, you know, like later on you do find, you know, post game, in fact, you do find a thing that lets you, you know, spend some money. But I think I bought one gun out of a vending machine the entire time, paid to refill my ammo like twice, and that was like, you know, that's like $400. By the end of the game, you've got millions of dollars. And so I wonder if a smarter way to play this game is to look at the guns but don't actually pick anything up unless you're going to use it. And just like free yourself of the burden of like, I've got to collect all this stuff so I can sell it and so I can get more money, so I can, because no part of that, other than the part where there are challenges for picking up items, and when you complete those challenges you get iridium and you know, other stuff like that. I wonder if the right answer is to just not care about any of that stuff, to free yourself from the loop. That guy blew himself up. Good. Okay. Same deal as opening all this stuff up. You sure do open a lot of chests with absolutely fuck all in them other than ammo, and ammo not that big of a deal. If you do some of the side stuff to get the separate currency that you use to increase the amount of bullets you can hold, I rarely found myself running out of ammo. This radar in the upper corner is not on by default, which I think is insane, because the red dots are extreme. Like, I've spent a good chunk of battle in this game. See, here's like a, yeah, we can kind of leap over here and reposition in the middle of a battle. I did not find that useful a single time, that use of the grappling hook. But I did find this compass in the corner extremely useful and vital for determining, especially when, like, your objective is kill all the enemies, and one of the enemies is just off in a corner, never activated for whatever reason, and just stands there as you shoot them because he's bugged out, which happened a few times. You want to be able to just find those things and move on. Okay, you want me to go up that way? Is that a thing I can do? Okay, here's a grapple point. Sometimes the grapple points glow, and in my experience, sometimes they do not, and that was sometimes very frustrating, leaving you looking around for, like, okay, where's the point? Where am I looking for? This is climbable, right? Yeah. Nice of it to highlight. Oh, nice of it to highlight that because you know what? The grapple points glow because the line is on, isn't it? Like when this line fades out, and you can set the length of time the line stays on, but there is no setting for it. Just leave it on until I turn it off. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's good. That's good that it kind of points that stuff out to you. However, I did find that the line was sometimes extremely unreliable, and like I said, would point you into a wall, or kind of just leave. Here's a great example of what the fuck I'm talking about. Are you shitting? Okay, no. Okay. Oh, yeah? That gun's bad.
What the? Is that a human?
A lot of old, when I talk about the game being old earlier, some of these moments are what I'm talking about, where, like, they have their canned animation of walk over, sit down, and they occasionally kind of turn their head in your direction while talking, but sometimes don't. Sometimes they're giving cutscene type dialogue to no one because you've walked out of the shot or walked behind them. And that sort of stuff is, you know, I don't know, whatever. Like, plenty of games have that issue. It's not like...
Don't try to eat me this time. Feeling a bit too spicy.
But boy, I wish that it didn't. I don't know. I wish that we didn't have that in games anymore. A lot of class mods for classes that are not your class in this game. If you like looking at class mods that are not something you can equip, Borderlands 4 is your game. Oh, I gotta talk to you. Okay.
I'm beginning to think you're a snow mirage. Oh. Or I'm dying, maybe.
Over here, lady.
Tiengo. We are high up, but you are higher.
All right. You caught me. Maybe I got a little freaked out and had a little bit of the old relaxing. It's an ancient herbal tradition I'll have, you know.
Space
Well,
weed?
great news. You failed upward for the last time. I'll take care of it.
Oh, great. Great. Oh, wait. Take my power cell. Pretty sure you'll need it for something. Seemed important.
Now get yourself home, and no more relaxant for you. Probably need to put this power cell into, something.
That's way too high. I can't get up there from here. But can I... Oh, okay. There's an air burst. And if I'm over here, I can probably reach that grapple point, right? No? There. There are a fair number of missions that are like this, of like, okay, I need to find a way up this surface, and there's kind of only one way. Like, there's maybe a few too many, I might say, where you're left going like, where's this grapple point? What am I...
Nailed it.
Weather data is finally coming in. Thank you, Wellspring. We needed this. And our scout came back in as well.
Uh-huh.
Really hitting the puffed cheese rations hard, but I suppose they've been through a lot.
Find them a greasy snack and a new assignment. Something that doesn't require training, or climbing, or good decision making.
Hooray. Let's see if this one did. I assume it did, because most of them do. Yeah. Most missions give you a reward, like a box that you have to open over here. Like this. And that'll have like if a mission has a gun reward, it shows up here, and you have to go open it separately. Oh no, this is this even from this, or is this because I killed a bunch of guys with this brand of gun? Challenges and things will also give you different cosmetics and things that will show up here. And so every time I opened this menu, it felt like I had like 8 more things in this menu to deal with. And that's a shotgun that might... No, my current shotgun's like 2,000 or something, I think. Yeah, yeah. So, forget it. Mark as junk. Since we're post-game, this specializations menu is opened up. I'm kind of spending points in here. Again, this is sort of like the badass rank kind of concept. You get these kind of passive abilities here that you, as you spend, you unlock, and then you can equip up to 4 of them. And so this is stuff like, oh, do you want to be able to aim down sights while you're in Down But Not Out, or I'm sorry, Fight for Your Life. It's not Gears of War. then you can equip that. It's actually kind of useful. And that shows up after you one of those things that is a post-game thing. I don't feel too bad about showing that because that, again, that's stuff they've talked about. They had a big old blog post up about like all the post-game stuff, and so like you see on the map here, we've got weekly stuff down here, where you can replay boss fights with harder modifiers. There's, you know, the vending machine, and then wild card missions, which are designed to be. They refer to them when they onboard you and they tutorialize the concept of a wild card mission. What happens if I just fucking do this? Cool. They talk about the wildcard missions like, oh, they're remixes of the existing missions, and so you're replaying missions from the campaign again. But the thing that surprised me about it was like they do kind of talk about it as if they've made changes to the mission, but the changes they make are like, hey, all the enemies are more powerful and they all have the same trait, like all of them spawn black holes when they die, and so you have to watch out for that. And then you replay that mission. But like all of the non-combat and starting mission objectives were in there as well, and so it's like spend 10 minutes walking around turning valves and solving, like turning the power back on in this town, which is like, they should skip all of that. Why would, like, no one, you get nothing out of it. It's not something they can remix in ways that make it challenging or more interesting, and all of the story dialogue is still there as well. So it's like you have to wait through all of the same story dialogue again to play it, and I think that's a bad experience. I'm surprised that they don't have like stripped down versions of the missions for replay, so that you can, you know, just kind of get to the thing that you're doing, which is combat, you know? You know, the challenging part, not the busy work part. And I was kind of baffled by that. I wonder if that's something that they will make a change on down the line, once they've had a little maybe time to catch their breath after shipping the game or something. But that stuck out to me as like, okay, that's a just kind of a bad experience, or a bad way to do this. And other than that, you know, hey man, it's Borderlands. I don't know that I have too much to say other than, you know, we've kind of covered a lot of ground here. I can bounce around and shoot stuff, but like I think you got the idea. You know, there's collectibles, and they primarily show up on the map. They'll give you different things as you find them. You have to unlock the safe travel points, which is sometimes kind of a hassle, because you have to go find a thing. You have to go into a facility, shoot a bunch of guys, find a data pad, then find a command outpost and take it over, and then then you can travel. Then it's like a fast travel point. You can go there. I feel like, well, whatever. I'm not going to sit here and pore over the map, but I also feel like there are not enough fast travel points. Like, and the game could use like a town portal type of thing, because sometimes you're far from a vending machine and your inventory is full and you're just leaving loot behind. Again, maybe that's just, I need to be smarter and let go of all the loot because all of it has been garbage anyway. Like, I'm going to say 90%. I just had to ballpark a figure. The overwhelming majority of guns I have seen in this game have not been better than the ones I already had. And that's not a great feeling in any game, but, you know, again, maybe you will have a luckier time with your experience or whatever. And that's Borderlands 4. It's okay. Yeah. Anything else? No, I guess not. Okay. I think it's a solid foundation for, you know, the type of stuff that they tend to do with Borderlands these days. And let me set this controller down. The type of DLC that they tend to go with, right? Because I'm not at the max level. I think the stuff that they're doing with this like Ultimate Vault Hunter stuff that ties into those wild card missions and some other kind of post game challenges, is probably a better way to handle some of the post-game stuff than like the old playthrough 1, playthrough 2 stuff that Borderlands 1 did, or, you know, like playing through, you know, you want to do all these missions again, but at max level. Like, no, I do not. Turns out I don't. I did. Oh, I did. And so like the game kind of tops out at like level 35 or so your first time through. And then when you if you want to find fight even higher level enemies and kind of raise the cap on the loot you'll find and whatever else, when you beat the game, you will unlock Ultimate Vault Hunter Tier 1, and there's, I guess, 5 different tiers of difficulty that you will unlock by completing challenges in world, which sounds similar to the badass rank stuff. With the way challenges worked in I guess 2. And then I think you'll have to complete a wild card mission to actually tier up to the next level of difficulty, and then that means you can find higher level loot and so on and so forth. So I think that's an okay way to handle it. It's entirely possible that Borderlands 3 handled it in a similar way, but I rolled credits on that thing and turned it off because I never wanted to play it again. The idea of going back into that world and doing more of that, I'm good. No, thank you. So, you know, like with that in mind, this is a better game than Borderlands 3. I think it is, again, I think it kind of resets them back to a better place. Somewhere in the realm of Borderlands 1 and 2 in terms of writing style, general writing style and tone and frequency of material. And I think that that's an improvement. The boss fights are all okay. You know, there's no rack hive in here. That's for sure. But there was no Cromorax either. I don't know, man. That's, like beating the game was not super difficult. I mean, it never is, right? But I don't know that I felt especially challenged through much of this game, playing it on normal, and kind of going through that first batch of levels. I don't know that I would say that it was especially difficult. There are harder difficulties that you can go with out of the gate if you want. Maybe that would have been a more interesting experience, but I don't know. The way this game handles difficulty is not great, or rather the way this game, like the difficulty comes from like, oh, I died as I killed the last fodder enemy, and now I'm here with this time ticking out, but there's no one for me to kill, and now I have to just respawn 2 minutes away and run back to this location and try this, and finish off whoever's left. And like that sort of stuff is frustrating. I also found myself under leveled at the end of the game. Because I stopped doing side stuff. Like I reached a point where I was like, I want to see this through. I want to see the end of this thing, and I'm going to just head in this direction, and found myself about 2 or 3 levels under what I probably should have been by that point. And so then I had to kind of disengage from the like stuff pretty close to the end of the game, and go just fast travel out and go do like 4 or 5 side missions to get the levels that I needed, and then I came back and nothing was a problem. It's sort of but like I reached a point where like enemies were not showing levels, they were just showing like red triangle exclamation point things like, yo, don't and when you encounter enemies that con that many levels above you, they take you out really fast. You're clearly not meant to do too much of that. You can handle a bit of it, but when every enemy around you is fighting like that, it's like, okay, all right, I'll back off and gain a level and come back. And that wasn't awesome. It's kind of a momentum killer, right? Like when you get in that mode where you're just like, I want to finish this game, I want to see where this is going, and then I can come back and do the side stuff later. Like it's kind of a momentum killer to be like, oh, I actually am not going to do that. That's actually a pain difficulty wise. So So yeah, I'm the technical stuff. I'm very curious to see where that ends up landing. Now that the game is out, in theory, by the time you're watching this, I assume that what we're looking at here is pretty close to, if not the actual final version of the game. But again, that shader compilation stuff is extremely noticeable, and if you are playing it after a patch, it's got to do it all over again. But I will say that what I saw here just now was actually a better way to handle it than they had been. It feels, I don't know if it's just compiling more on that loading screen before you get to an area as we were fast traveling around. But what I was experiencing before was you would fast travel into an area and then it would still stutter for a while after that. Like it had to compile more shaders once you got there. So maybe they're just compiling more of them ahead of time, or compiling a larger radius around your spawn point so that you won't hit the wall, the hitchy wall, as immediately. Whatever they're doing, that seems like an improvement, but it is still something you're gonna probably notice on PC. They did not have console versions of the game available for review. They said that those would be available at launch, so I assume that you're not going to see any console coverage today, or any like thorough console coverage unless they sent it out over the last couple of days or two. I have not seen it on any console. I have found myself extremely curious to know how that game runs on Switch 2 as a result of all the shader business and everything else. Like what's up with that version of the game. I would be fascinated to see how that is, but that's not day and date. That's coming a little bit after. It's like a week or whatever it is, right? I believe that's the case. Anyway, Borderlands 4, it's out there. I think it's like a 3 out of 5. It's okay. The game's okay. Go read the full review if you want some more kind of nitty-gritty discussion of that. Again, that's on the Patreon. You can read that for free. The review is not behind a paywall or anything, but it is posted to Patreon. You can go over there and check it out. Do check it out. And, I don't know, sign up if you want. Hey, get on the Discord. We'll hang out. Yeah, I will see you next time.